Captain Triumph. I know some of you are like, who? It's obscure character time again. So I was reading through the index/timeline at the end of this new history of the DC universe, as you do. This is setting itself up time of recording as the definitive DC timeline going forward. For now, we'll see how long that lasts. They've done this before. Some remember the post-Crisis on Infinite Earths one quite fondly, the one that had George Perez art. Some of the changes actually have gone back to some of the things from that had shifted after. This is actually interesting. It's very dry in terms of there being a narrative, but in terms of what it's doing with the history, that part's fascinating if you're into that kind of thing. However, I perhaps noticed something. I didn't see any reference in here to Captain Triumph in the area where he would be, which would be the World War II era. And there's quite a lengthy section about that, both inside and at the end. Now, I was originally at the back because I was looking for Tex Thompson, aka Mr. America. He's not a captain, or the America Mando. Just because he debuted in Action Comics #1, so he's got to be there, and he was. But I didn't see Captain Triumph. I did find Captain Nazi, though. Now, maybe over my several comb-throughs, I just missed him. Or maybe he's coming later. They've altered his backstory, and he's going to slot in a bit later on. Maybe he's just been deemed not important. Maybe he's been missed. But regardless, whatever it is, his heart or his shoes, and maybe we want to talk about Captain Triumph, because he's a fascinating character, so we're going to. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and I'm once more off on a tangent. Captain Triumph debuted in Crack Comics #27, which was published by Quality Comics. That issue came out in 1943, and Captain Triumph would remain with the series until issue 62. That was in 1949, and after that, Crack Comics became Crack Western, and it only ran for 22 more issues, and then it became Jonesy Jonesy, and then it got canceled. Now, when Captain Triumph debuted, he also became the cover feature, in his glorious non-costume. Who wrote his issues has largely been lost to time for a lot of them, but issue 27 has art by Alfred Andriola, and so he gets the creator credit. Now, Captain Triumph has a pretty unique backstory, and he also occupies an interesting space in terms of when he's created and how he's presented because of it. Because it's 1943, the superhero popularity has started to wane, so while he'll have a lot of superhero elements, he'll also have some other ones too, so it's a bit of a fusion. He kind of has a costume, but not really. He has a superhero name and powers, but he doesn't have a secret identity. People just don't recognize him. And his adventures are also a bit more along the spy theme, but that's also not atypical for some superheroes. But enough burying the lead. Who is Captain Triumph? Well, Captain Triumph is both Lance and Michael Gallant. I want to say Gallant, but I'm stopping myself. Lance and Michael were identical twins born in 1919. They're exactly alike down to having the same birthmark on their left wrist. They're completely inseparable to the point where the intro describes them as of one mind. However, as it goes on, you do see that they do have slightly different personalities. Michael goes on to join the Air Force, and Lance becomes a journalist/writer. The intro says that his weapon is the word and the pen. Our story inside opens in 1942. Outside the gates of Acme Aircraft Corporation, Lance Gallant and Kim Meredith watch a new Army pursuit plane sweep on the field. Michael's landing now. I hope he hurries. I planned a bang-up birthday party for you two. Kim, how many times has that brother of mine proposed to you? I've been keeping count. When he reaches the 1,000 mark, I'm gonna accept Lance. That's kind of weird, Kim, but Lance is a good bro, so he hypes his brother up. Michael would make a swell husband. If he'd ever settle in one spot. One week he's in the States, the next he's in China. He loves the air too much. As this discussion is going on, the hangar where Michael landed explodes. Did my brother get out? Have you seen Michael Gallant? It's helping some of the others. Hey, don't inside. Suicide. Gotta find my brother. Michael, it's me and Lance. Come on, I'll help you out. Hey, you lug. Better save your own neck. And so Michael dies in his brother's arms on their birthday. He asks for the usual things, like for Lance to take care of Kim. And then Lance swears vengeance. As God is his witness, there'll never be crime again. Michael Gallant was my brother. I swear there's no risk I wouldn't take. Nothing I'd hesitate to do. I'd sacrifice anyone's life, my own included, to wipe from the face of the earth the evil that brought about this disaster. I would sacrifice anyone's life, not playing around. Now, we don't even get a chance to mourn Michael properly because on the same page in the side panels, he's back as a ghost. Then suddenly, crash! Hi, Lance, I heard your speech. I know you meant it. Michael, no, it can't be. Yes, Lance, you can see and hear me, but I do not exist to the eyes and ears of any other human. This is my spirit, you see. I can see and hear you, and yet you're dead. Lance, I want you to do what you said in that pretty speech. Fight the forces of evil, vice, and cruelty. Devote your life to it, and I'll help you. Michael's like, we'll kill together. You know, Lance is making some pretty big life commitments in a highly emotional state. Michael says that as a spirit, he has powers now that he can give to Lance. He can make him invisible, let him fly, make him nigh invulnerable. And Michael says that to do all of this, all Lance has to do is rub the birthmark. Just touch it. Whenever you rub it, I will enter your body, and you will become Captain Triumph. That, I know that doesn't sound, I know that sounds dirtier to some than they want it to sound. Also, Michael looks a little crazed used in this panel. I can see why some later creators, well, one, is going to take this in a darker direction. Go ahead, Lance, rub the birthmark. That birthmark that they have there is going to go from being a subtle little T sometimes to being a giant red T mark. It really depends who's drawing it. And lo, he rubs the birthmark and becomes Captain Triumph. I hope he likes the name and the costume. Michael seems to have picked it, or it seems to have been told to him, but you know what? If he picked it, it's only fair. He is dead. Now, issue 1 sets to establish some rules that will almost immediately change, such as that only Michael can see Lance, but other characters can kind of sense or feel a ghostly presence, and sometimes in later stories, Michael will even be able to influence them. Michael! Oh, my darling! Easy, Kim. Hey, what's going on over there? A crowd chasing that old man. So the rest of the issue is Lance trying to find out what happened to Michael, and also trying out being Captain Triumph and the powers. We get to see them. You know, he gets shot at, bullets just bounce right off. Now, because of the year it is, this turns out to be a Nazi plot. Lance learns that the bomb was planted by an Otto Ratter. Oh, come on now. Why would you even hire somebody with that name? I'm looking at your resume here, Mr. Janice Skevington. Seems like you're hired. One of my favorite parts of this issue is that when Lance determines that the person who set this bomb is an Axis spy, he believes that his boss must be German. So he goes to disguise himself as one, and all he does to do this is add a monocle to his look that he makes out of his own camera lens. Don't you know me? You ain't Bragg, Baron von Bragg. I've been waiting for you. Where's my dough? A wild roar of thunder and sudden lightning pierced the room, and like magic, no, the name is not Bragg, it's Captain Triumph. Hey, what's going on here? Where's the other guy? Yeah, Lance will just transform right in front of people, and except for one character, nobody makes the connection. Captain Triumph foils the Nazi plot, and the day is saved for now. Now, admittedly, even for the time, Captain Triumph can lack a little bit of depth in terms of his development, although what he does have is really ripe with potential. But we'll get there, because there are a couple of things that need to be highlighted, because they do make him stand out, and they make him a little special, and they tend to be the things that people bring forward with him. So let's bring some of those. Issue 28 adds a layer to how he became Captain Triumph. It's the fates who made them Captain Triumph. But more importantly, in this issue, Lance tells Kim there are no secrets. Lance, is something troubling you? Ever since Michael was killed, you've been almost a different person. I am different, Kim. You are my brother Michael's sweetheart. I'm going to tell you a secret. You read about Captain Triumph in the newspapers, Kim. Well, Michael and I are that man. It's a strange and fantastic story. You, Captain Triumph? Oh, how wonderful. But Michael is dead. I don't understand. Remember how nobody else could see Michael's spirit? Well, forget it, because this issue Kim can see him. It's because it's sweet, and it's also so that she can believe Lance and he doesn't seem insane. Look, Kim, Michael. Hello, Cupcake. Michael, it is you, but you're a spirit, Kim. I can't do anything a human can do, but when I rub this birthmark, his spirit combines with my body. Watch, and forms Captain Triumph. We become one person. What's really important here is that it solidifies something that was hinted at in the last issue, but it now becomes crystal clear. And that is that Captain Triumph is a combined unit of a person of Lance and Michael. It's a fusion dance. It's a gem fusion. It's that kind of thing. It's a new person. And then when they separate, they individually remember what happened as Captain Triumph. But they view Captain Triumph as a separate person, just as Captain Triumph views them as separate people. Also, from this point on, Kim is going to be all in helping Lance and Captain Triumph. However, her being able to see Michael is not a regular thing. This series is also going to go pretty hard into the things that can happen to her and just how loyal she is to Captain Triumph. For example, in issue 31, when she's kidnapped by a Spade and they're trying to get her to reveal Captain Triumph, she gets so badly beaten, and it's the Golden Age, so they show it. Where is Captain Triumph? I don't know. For 15 minutes, Spade keeps repeating the same question. Where is Captain Triumph? I don't know. Where is Captain Triumph? I don't know. Where is Captain Triumph? Where is Captain Triumph? I don't know. I don't know now. I don't know, I tell you. Until Kim's face is covered with blood and welts and open wounds. She's shown beat up for the rest of the issue too. It is a lot. This issue also looks like it has a bit of Dick Tracy influence in how some of the villains are drawn. They're kind of grotesque-esque. Now, by the time this is going on, Lance had acquired another supporting character, Biff, the clown. But really, Biff, the former clown, he is only a clown for part of one issue. He shows up as a clown on the cover, in all fairness, in Crack Comics issue 30. It's an homage cover to Detective Comics 38. And it just opens with the two of them having met and Lance helping him out because he's having a hard time at the circus. Hey, what's this, Biff? Tears aren't for clowns. You're supposed to make people laugh. Oh, hello, Mr. Gallant. Yeah, laugh. It ain't funny unless I have a new act to put on tonight. I'm fired. Perhaps Captain Triumph can help him out. Let's see, maybe we can drum something up. Ooh, a combo thought and speech balloon. Love it.
It's no use. I go on exactly 5 minutes. We don't have time to rehearse anything.
I mostly read this because I wanted to show you the amazing sweater before he combines into Captain Triumph with his brother. Biff and Lance become friends, well, better friends. He just shows up helping him out. Things just happen with Lance. By the end of this, Lance does end up hiring him as his personal assistant, but also Biff is the one person who recognizes that he becomes Captain Triumph. So, he earned that spot.
By my Aunt Sophie's spectacles, I'm seeing things. You're one and the same guy.
Also, you'll notice at the top of that narration, there's all this cursive. It's because Lance is writing to Kim about this. He's writing her a letter and she's reading it with her legs all kicked up. Now, from this moment on, Kim, Biff, and Lance, and Michael, but the three of them are going to be a human trio, and then Michael will be there around. At points, it even seems like they're living together. And actually, at the end of issue 30, it's low-key implied that Lance and Kim are already living together, just based on how the letter is phrased. And so, Kim, I have a new assistant, and I'm bringing him home with me. See you soon. As ever, Lance. Lance, I just finished reading your letter.
Hi, we came home earlier than we expected. This is Kim, Biff. Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. And I always liked Lana Turner.
Now, at first, these stories largely focused on things like murder, some espionage, a lot of wartime stories. But as years go on, this was a bi-monthly book, as the years go on, the stories will start to shift as the times change. And there are some unique elements to Captain Triumph. Like, for example, sometimes Michael will be off doing his own thing as a spirit, and then he'll be the catalyst for the adventure. He's not glued to Lance's side or anything like that, but usually it's Lance, Kim, and Biff stumbling onto something, one of them, all of them, and then they have to go deal with it. There is another issue of note, though, where it adds something to the lore that will trickle down, something that may have been there before, but it's explicitly stated in issue 56. This is from the year 1948 in the story Gossip Leads to Murder, and we have a writer for that one. Hooray! It's William Woolfolk, and Reed Crandall is the artist. In the story Gossip Leads to Murder, Lance and the gang have to help clear Lance's name after it looks like he killed a sleazy columnist. A gossip columnist, as the title promised. But in this story, all of a sudden, it says that Kim is Lance's fiancé. For the first time, it has not said this before. All of a sudden, she is the fiancé, and I went back and I read every single Crack Comics issue. He does not propose to her. I was like, did he propose? And I missed it. No, he didn't. After reading through these issues, this series deserves more credit, and it's fairly interesting. One of my favorite issues is number 51, where the three have to fight a werewolf. That's all I was able to find out, Mr. Sullivan. Her name is Kim Meredith. Once she was engaged to a man named Michael Gallant, now she's the fiancé of his brother, Lance Gallant. Since when, comics? Since when? Also, if we want to get technical, was she Michael's fiancé? She never said yes. Remember, she was waiting for time 1000. A few issues ago, Lance was coming home saying Biff and Kim were his best friends. I mean, they still could be, and if so, that's so sweet. But in issue 55, just one issue before, we had Michael saying this. While I was alive on Earth, Kim and I were engaged. It's a blessing just to look at her sometimes. You good there, Michael? I mean, I feel like if she was engaged to Lance, this would be the time to mention it. There's something along the lines of, and I'm so glad my brother is taking care of her, or she's found love, or something. They don't lean into this, really. And the way that Lance and Kim are written, they are written as being close, but they've always been written as being close. But it never feels like they're explicitly inside of a relationship, a romantic relationship at least. But again, this brings me to one of those interesting parts about Captain Triumph's lore. His relationships, the way he interacts with other people. It's really fascinating, and Lance has a really low-key kind of personality that can come across as a bit boring to some. He's curious, but he's just not as impetuous or adventurous as his brother. However, he's also shown at points to be extremely intense. He just doesn't have an overly loud personality. I'm bringing that up just to say that they are different, because if you add this whole Kim element to it where she's engaged to both of them, in a way she's in a relationship with three people when you think about it. Lance, Michael, and Captain Triumph. Because remember, Captain Triumph is a combination of the two, making him another separate person. So her former fiance's brother, her dead fiance, and then their combo fusion form. You could do so much with that. Which one does she love? Does she love all of them? Does Lance love her? Is this something he's doing for his brother? Lance can come across as fairly asexual, or maybe aromantic, or maybe just not interested in relationships. It's just not something that really comes up too much with his character. The woman he's closest to is Kim, but as time goes on, he has an equally close relationship to Biff. There's a whole group dynamic going on there. Just think about all this. How does Michael feel about it? Would they combine into Captain Triumph to be with her? Because remember, they both remember what happens when that happens, because that's the only way Michael can feel human things. Are Otherwise, he just has ghost powers and ghost influence, and every now and again, the writer will forget or just change the fact that people can't see him. The whole fact that Lance and Michael can investigate crime simultaneously and separately is used to good effect in several stories. And you can also double the amount of adventure you can get out of the character because of it, because you can take it from different vantage points and use their different skills. It's rare that there's tension about Lance not being able to rub his birthmark. It happens, but not that often. But adding that would also be a really cool element, times when either one or both have to go it alone and they can't become Captain Triumph. Now, in this series, Lance is always happy to see his brother. He loves him and he's happy that he's around. This is because in this era, this is presented as being sweet. He didn't lose his brother. They still get to work together and see each other. It's wholesome. However, there are, of course, other ways to look at this, and we're about to get to them. So after the end of Crack Comics, you don't see Captain Triumph for quite a while. Now, Captain Triumph was one of the characters purchased by DC when they took over the Quality Street characters, even though by that point, Captain Triumph was already in public domain. DC hasn't done too much with him, but there have been a couple of standout moments. Now, Roy Thomas wanted to add him to the All-Star Squadron. He's on the cover of issue 1, but he never actually ended up using him. Grant Morrison referenced him in Animal Man #7. This by having one of the villains, the Red Mask, describe him.
Yeah, we made a hot team, but somehow we never really hit the big time. Had a pretty good fight with Captain Triumph once, but that was about it. You probably don't even remember Captain Triumph. Nice guy, but he had the personality of a deck chair, you know?
The personality of a deck chair? I mean, Lance a little bit, but he was just quiet. But Michael, no. Captain Triumph did have a pretty generic hero personality when they were combined. However, deck chair just seems harsh. As a fellow deck chair, I'm offended. Now, the first person to really make use of Captain Triumph post the Golden Age is James Robinson. This in the Elseworld series JSA, The Golden Age, which was originally published in 4 issues from 1993 to 1994. Now, while this is officially an Elseworld story, if you've read the later Starman series by Robinson, it's clear that he wanted it to be canon because what can be referenced from that series is brought in, like Starman's mental breakdown. The Golden Age really deserves its own video, and I'm so sad that I left it downstairs. I always leave the books that I need for videos downstairs, and now it's too far. Is it worth getting it? I feel like it is. Okay, seriously, The Golden Age deserves its own video. Yes, I ran downstairs to get it. Now it's reflecting at you. It's a really strong work that uses the heroes of the Golden Age to work through the post-war era's feelings and cultural and political shifts with those characters. It does this by taking them and amplifying some of their traits that could be inferred or were actually there. And then, instead of what happened in the Silver Age, well, the restrictions inside the comics themselves, it has those play out in the environment of those years. It does this in such a way where the characters don't feel too foreign, even if it really doesn't paint some of them in the best light. But it's still such a strong piece. But because of the themes it's working through, it can be fairly bleak at points, though it does end optimistically and has a very strong heroic core. It also has a fantastic villain reveal. Top tier. It, however, does not take the most positive look at the relationship between Lance and Michael and the concept of Captain Triumph. It does view it as something a bit horrifying. It takes it as the idea that Lance is a man who's haunted. He's someone who's trying to free himself of Captain Triumph and can't live his own life or fully be his own man because of this.
Touch it, Lance. Touch the birthmark. Leave me alone, damn you. Go find a house to haunt or something. You know I can never leave you, that we're destined to be together. You know it. No. All I know is you've hung around like a bad smell instead of shuffling off to the great beyond. Look, Michael, I have a life now, and I don't. I never can, never will, unless you touch that blasted birthmark and combine us as one. Make us Captain Triumph again so I can feel, so I can live. It's now I want life now. Want to be Captain Triumph again. Touch the birthmark, Lance. Touch it!
Lance Gallant has millions. He'd trade them all for one day of peace. This is not a happy story for Captain Triumph, Lance, or Michael, and it doesn't end happily for them either. What this does is it takes and reframes what the original Golden Age stories view as a miracle and paints it as a curse. It's something that's keeping them both from ever being free, and Lance from ever being able to be his own person or hero in his own right. It's very sad. Not the kind of outcome I would personally have wanted for Lance and Michael, but it's the kind of thing where you can see the logic and the reasoning behind how the creator got there. Also, Captain Triumph was an important character in this, so yay! Later DC outings would also use him in a bit of a different capacity. Partially as a joke, but also partially to further the character development of another character, and that's Harley Quinn. We get to see Captain Triumph in issues 50, 51, and 52 of the 2016 Harley Quinn series, in the year 2018. He falls from the sky in issue 50, but issues 51 and 52 are mostly about him. They even have the name names Triumph Part 1 and Triumph Part 2, but they really shouldn't because Triumph is actually a different DC character. Now, Harley Quinn as a series tends to have a bit more of a comedic slant in general. That's not to say it can't be serious, but overall that tends to be where it's starting from for a lot of the runs, and the 2016 one is no exception. These stories are by Sam Humphries, and the art's by Sammy Barcy, and there's a lot of man at a time jokes because that's what's going on with Captain Triumph in this. He falls from the sky in a different time. Where is he? What are cell phones? It's a bird. It's a plane. Hang on, that's not Superman. Now it's Aquaman. What? Wait, who are you? My name is Captain Triumph. He is an entirely new body type now. This series also alters how his powers work. It's really different, actually. It changes the base concept. Instead of Michael being a spirit who combines with Lance to become a hero, a separate person, they're fused together. There's no more birthmark, no more rubbing the magic birthmark. You know this right away because Captain Triumph starts to freak out about not being able to hear his brother, and that's just not the way their powers worked before. Together as Captain Triumph, they were Captain Triumph. There was no Lance and Michael. That was only when they were separate. In fact, Captain Triumph would say things like, Lance should do this when we separate. Now, these stories really don't need to be happening with Captain Triumph specifically. They really just need any hero out of time, a past hero, because the underlying theme of these stories is that Harley Quinn is trying to go back to her past. She's looking at her old costume. She's feeling nostalgic for those things. So they just need a character to represent nostalgia, and Captain Triumph is the character that's been chosen. And specifically the golden age of heroes is what's going to be referenced. But the way he's written has very little to do with his classic characterization.
I tried to go to my favorite library in Brooklyn, but an old lady said you closed it down to line your pockets with greenbacks. Libraries are important.
Now he ends up hanging out with Harley, who decides to show him that her world can be fun, and they have a whole hanging out montage. And it does acknowledge some of the facts of his past stories.
My world is so much more than just dancing and punching fascists. It's my brother and my fiance Kim and my clown friend.
Again, Biff was only a clown for part of one issue. And he was his personal assistant. He never wore the scary clown costume again. It was on 2 covers, the first appearance and then issue 33. Biff the clown looks pretty intense in the Rebirth era, but you notice they're also calling her his fiance. It's juicy. Now things take a turn when he learns that it was Harley who accidentally got him trapped there. And issue 52 is really worth checking out because it retells his origins. We get a Rebirth version of the Captain Triumph origin. It has the crash, but it takes out Michael dying in his brother's arms, and it has the Fates appear to Lance and makes them 3 witches instead. And it's them who ask him if he wants to take revenge rather than him making a vow to make the world safer. I mean, a very dramatic vow. So there are several things that really shift the type of person that Captain Triumph, Michael, and Lance are. If you think about it, there's a big difference between making a vow and it being answered versus being asked if one wants vengeance. There is also, at this point, it's clear there's no more rubbing of the magic birthmark. Instead, the witches fuse them together, and it's like Michael's spirit is just there. Now, while this is far less convoluted, it's also, in my opinion, less interesting.
Captain Triumph was born, and not even Michael was finished. His ghost was saved by the witches and bonded to Lance. Suddenly I'm written with Biff's accent, and as weird as it sounds, Kim's story wasn't done either. Captain Triumph was a big-time hero of the Golden Age.
Wow, is that the Red Bee? It is, and it's a bunch of random quality characters who are not in the same magazine as Captain Triumph. Why is Biff in the scary clown costume? Why? It's in this panel that I really missed Captain Triumph's old physique. He just kind of looks like a blonde Tom Strong in these panels. Now, Captain Triumph, after some more freaking out, does eventually find his brother's ghost, and he gets to go back to his time with his friends. And it is kind of sweet, but the thing is, this story is on a meta level, as mentioned, about Harley moving forward and not giving into nostalgia surrounding her past. So it's taking the past belongs in the past kind of stance, which miles will vary based on how people take the tone of it. It seems to be going for an everything in its time type vibe, but if one feels there are still stories to tell with, for example, Captain Triumph, and that there's still value to be found there, it may not be the best equivalent to Harley's situation, which is what they're trying to say is that she's undergone character development and it's best not to look back at the past Harley. One doesn't need to, which is not the same thing as taking a classic and forgotten character and doing something with them, because then it could be read as those stories and those characters, there's no point even revisiting them. Personally, if that is what's being said, which is just one read, that's not something that I agree with. But again, people are probably going to say that I am overthinking, as always. It's my default state. What do you take out of these stories? Also, 51 and 52, worth reading from this era of Harley Quinn. It's interesting. I personally did not love the changes they made to Captain Triumph in the story, but it is always nice to see people acknowledge that the Golden Age characters existed, even though at some moments it felt a bit cursory or cliff notes in terms of the characters they put together. And the little things like Biff being in clown costume when for most of the series he isn't, although the clown costume is more visually distinct. Maybe it's because that's what he appeared on the cover. Captain Triumph is very over the top in this story, but so are many characters in this era of Harley Quinn. And while it would feel like he's out of character compared to how he was written before, one could also argue that this is a different version for the Rebirth era. I guess I'm just a bit of a fan of the stoic Captain Triumph. Us deck chairs gotta stick together. What these versions really do, both this and the Golden Age, is they really make me want to see an updated version of Captain Triumph that's stable. Because we've had two versions where he's not doing the best, one where he wants nothing to do with his brother, the other where he's very codependent. Just having a version where him and Michael are happy and they've adapted to their situation, and also the whole Captain Triumph element as a separate person, that would be a truly unique take. Especially if you keep the relationships he has with Kim and Biff. Just general query for all of you. Which do you think is more interesting? Sharing a body, or him having these powers and his ghost kind of being around, or the version where it's they're combined into one person and then they're also separate people? You really could make a case for any of them, but there's something a bit more unique about the original Golden Age version in my opinion, and just, rub the magic birthmark. Anyways, this was just supposed to be about his origin, and then it ballooned and I got way too excited about Captain Triumph, and we've been talking about it for a while now. I kind of want to do a full retrospective on his crack comics era now, just like we did with Doll Man. Like, nobody else wants that. Captain Triumph, do you like him? Do you remember him? Do you see any potential? Was he indeed missing from the new history? Hopefully it's the future and he showed up. Or I just missed him, I'm tired a lot of the time. Everything, as always, time of recording. Maybe we're living the era of Captain Triumph. Whatever is happening, I'm glad to have gotten the chance to talk about him. I hope you enjoyed as well, and your thoughts, I want to hear them. Please leave them down below, and while you're down there, please do all YouTube things like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notifications so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it. I will see you again soon. Bye-bye. Made it before the camera died. We were so close.